The 1-2 pitch. Hit toward third. Castro has it. Spins, fires. A perfect game! Roy Halladay has thrown the second perfect game in Philadelphia Phillies history. He faces 27 batters. He retires all 27.
Hey, howdy, hey, everybody, and welcome to the next episode of 2 On, 2 Out, a Phillies podcast with Bob and Andrew. Bob, how are we feeling today?
Yeah.
Good answer. I love it. A week ago when we recorded this fine podcast, we went over a little breakdown of the first quarter plus of the Philly season, and we looked ahead to this road trip where they were heading to Tampa Bay and Cincinnati. With a 5-game set over 7 days, a couple off days in there, we thought, try to take 3 out of 5. You're on the road, going 1 over 500 would be great. The Phillies ended up going 1-3 with a rainout, including a sweep by the Tampa Bay Rays.
Just like we said.
Yeah, and splitting the series out in Cincinnati. So, I guess before we get into the 4 games that they did play, I already asked you how you're feeling, Bob, but how are you feeling about this team? Because I love talking baseball, I love talking about the team, and I love sitting and doing this every week. But I would be lying if I said it weren't a bit more difficult to do. When the team is playing like this, and they're the excitement levels are kind of drifting away as we see the product on the field. What's your take right now?
Well, I don't know. I know we had a lot of hopes coming into the season, and we talked about a couple weeks ago the rough stretch of games that we're about to head into, which we will talk about later on. I don't know. It's a weird feeling because I think this team is underachieving. And this division is still winnable. And even getting into the playoffs, I think is still achievable. But, you're starting to weigh, is it worth it? Or, do we need to start worrying more about the future and maybe either bringing guys up or sending guys down to get more time, or trading whatever assets you have for next year. Just in a weird spot. So that's why I have the answer, because it's just, that's how I feel. It's just we're at a weird spot of, I think we can, but is it worth it? And can we actually?
Yeah, well, you make a lot of good points there. One of the things you mentioned was about the division, and right now the Mets do have a 4-game lead over the Braves, 4.5 over the Phillies, and then 6 and 6.5 over Miami and Washington. Those sound like bigger leads, but the Mets also have played significantly fewer games than the rest of the division. It may be as high as 6 or 7 that they'll need to play catch up on. So.
Yeah.
Also
June 4th, and we're not even through the third month of the season.
Yeah, it's and then I think it plays into another point you make where, and I don't believe you use the word rebuild, but we do or should talk about this quote unquote rebuild that the Phillies had, because you've seen teams. I mean, for instance, the Red Sox, in the same time that we've rebuilt quote unquote. The Red Sox have won a championship, dismantled, and then now made themselves contenders again in a span of 4 or 5 years. And we're on a 10+ year stretch where we haven't even reached the point that we're back in the playoffs, let alone championship contention and whatnot. So they're again talking about the future. Talking about what you do going into the deadline. The links to vote for the All-Star players that started coming out this week. So we are getting to that point in the season where it's a lot to think about. do you bring up the young guys? What young guys do you bring up? Because it's not like the farm system is chock full of top level prospects. So it's very much in a state of
There's no Ryan Howard that's waiting in the wings right now. It's just a very weird situation that this team is in, and good old Dave Dombrowski's going to do a lot of work. I think we'll see most of his work done after this season. But he's been very quiet since he's been here. And I would love to just hear what he thinks about this team right now, and what he envisions for the future.
Yeah, and what's even tougher, whoever you were to put in this role, it's tough to balance. You just signed JT Realmuto to those 5 years. Harper's here for another decade. So those are two guys right there that are locked in. I think Nola's in here for another 3-4 years. So you've got these, big names that are locked in, you get yourself. It's not a completely new leadership because it's still John Middleton, heading things. So, man, oh man, I didn't actually expect us to get into this kind of discussion right off the bat, but yeah, it's rough. There's a lot of just a lot of question marks, and not a lot of those question marks are going to be answered anytime soon. So,
No.
we kind of just have.
Andrew, let's get to the games, and let's start with the series with the team that's honestly everybody should be building or modeling themselves after. That is when we went down to see the good old Tampa Bay Rays.
Yeah, and one guy you to bring up from the Rays organization, I always forget how to say his first name, Bloom, that was working in their organization that got
I believe it's
hired.
Chaim.
Yeah, I think you're right. Got hired as a Red Sox GM, and he's a big part of why they turned it around so quickly. So yes, the Rays are, other than their lack of willingness to spend money, they are a team to photocopy how you run a franchise, but at least the non-money side of, and they prove it time and time again. Here they are again, sitting atop of their division, and we knew going into this series, 2 games, that it would be tough for the Phillies. Even with Wheeler and Eflin going out there, we knew that it was going to be a battle. So in that first game, which is worth noting, on that Saturday, May 29th, was the 11th year anniversary of Roy Halladay's perfect game against the Marlins. We could talk more about that a little later on. We didn't get to too much about him last week. But so in this year's game, it was Zach Wheeler starting things off. He would end up going 7 innings, giving up 4 hits, 3 earned runs. 2 of those runs came in the first inning. It was a 2-run home run to Austin Meadows. Wheeler would come away with 14 strikeouts. I believe that was a career high for him, or at least tied a career high. 2 walks. So another solid outing. And as we talk about, the All-Star vote, we'll get into it later, but right now, Zach Wheeler really is the only one making a case to get himself into that Colorado game.
Mm-hmm.
As we head into the 5th inning, at this point the Phillies are down 2-0. We get a 1-out walk from Odubel Herrera, a bunt single from Roman Quinn. So 2 guys on, 1 out, and Ronald Torreyes, who's been seeing a lot of playing time with a couple injuries to the team. He comes up with an RBI double down the right field line. It gets misplayed by Manuel Margot. So Herrera would have scored easily, and then it allows Roman Quinn to round third and head home. However, Quinn would, I believe, tear his Achilles coming around third base, and he hopped himself to home plate. He didn't give up on the play, and ended up tying the game up. But we'd later find out that this would be the end of the season for Roman Quinn, and man, his career. They put up a graphic of all his injuries, and it's just one thing after another with him, and he just cannot stay healthy. And despite what he does bring to the team in terms of speed, and he's made a few throws from center field to throw guys out of the plate. He just cannot keep himself on the team long enough, and it continues to catch up with him. And that may have been the last game we see of him in a Phillies uniform. I believe he becomes a free agent after this year. So
yeah, you really feel for him. And I'm watching the replay. You can see almost the exact point of when it happens, and it's pretty gutsy play of him just like literally hobbling over to home plate. But yeah, I believe he's having surgery, and he will be out at least 9 to 12 months. And yeah, like I said, we'll see if he gets re-signed in the offseason or if he is indeed moving on.
Yeah, he'll if he's not picked up here, he'll certainly be picked up somewhere. Just that kind of speed, you can't ignore it. And
and everybody could use an outfielder, especially a guy with that kind of speed. Even with the injury concerns, I think he's worth at least a minor league contract somewhere with a guy who's capable of playing in the big leagues, and some guy who can keep in the minors maybe and call up when you need him.
Well, the Rays would go on to take the lead. They would score an extra run off of Zach Wheeler. So a 3-2 lead going into the 7th inning, where we see Matt Joyce come in for a pinch hit, and he hits a home run. I believe it was his first hit in 29 at bats. You had texted me when it happened. That surely doesn't erase any any of his performance from the rest of the season. But it was nice to see him come up and produce for the team a little bit, tie things up. And
it just proves that he listens to the podcast, and he is motivated by us, and he wanted to prove us wrong.
Absolutely. So Matt, if you're listening, keep it up, big guy.
Good job.
The 8th inning saw Sam Coonrod come in relief of Zach Wheeler, and it was not his greatest performance. He gives up a single, does get a strikeout, and then an intentional walk to the next batter after, I believe it was a Rosarena, made a swipe of second base. So 2 guys on. They bring Jose Alvarado into the game in his return to Tampa Bay, and he allows a single to Austin Meadows. He hits the next batter with a pitch, followed by a strikeout, and then a bases loaded walk. So the Rays end up scoring two in that inning. I'm sorry. They score 2 runs in that inning to take the 5-3 lead. Jackie Bradley. Archie Bradley into the game to finish off that inning. So Zach Wheeler goes 7 innings, giving up the 3 runs, and then the combination of Sam Coonrod, Jose Alvarado, and Archie Bradley all combined to throw 1 inning and give up those 2 extra runs to the Rays, and that would be it. The Rays take that game 5-3. One more note in that game that we didn't touch on: JT Realmuto does return to the lineup. I believe he was catching that game. Maybe he did DH, but Realmuto does make his return to the team after 10 days on the injured list. So we move ahead to the Sunday game, the final game of that quick 2-game set with the Rays. Once again, the Phillies would fall. This time the Rays score 6 and the Phillies just 2. Zach Eflin gets the start. He goes 4 2/3 of an inning. 6 hits allowed, 4 earned runs, 1 walk, and 5 strikeouts. Not much to talk about as far as the Philly offense goes. Realmuto did have a sacrifice fly, and Brad Miller had an RBI double in the 6th inning to score the Phillies only 2 runs of the game. For the Rays, Mike Zunino and Brett Phillips both hit home runs. G-Man Choi with a double. So that buzzsaw that we talked about last week of the Tampa Bay Rays continue to chop through the Phillies and sweep that 2-game set. So after that quick little sweep, the Phillies then head to Cincinnati on Memorial Day. Not a pretty performance. The Phillies would fall to the Reds 11-1 in this one. And we saw a bit of a return to earth for Vince Velasquez. He would go just 3 innings, allow 5 hits, 6 earned runs with 3 walks and 3 strikeouts. Real quick, Bob, do you see this as Do you see this as a hiccup for Vince Velasquez, or do you see it as, okay, his little fun streak is over and we're getting back to quote unquote the real Vince Velasquez?
Vince to me was always a cautionary tale of kind of ride him while you can, ride his hot streak. So it's for me, it's always sort of been start by start. You really don't have too many other options. So next time he goes out, you just kind of have to keep doing. At least what I've been doing is just hoping that he can. In the past, it was hoping he could stay hot. Now it's hoping he can sort of return to form and just give you at least a solid quality start, at least.
Yeah. Go ahead, finish your.
No, but like it was one of those games where like off the bat you kind of knew was not going to be a win, and not that the team threw in the towel, but they put in Anderson after him and then David Hale after him, so it was one of those games where like they kind of knew it wasn't going to be a good game. So it was just I always took whatever start that Vince make with a grain of salt. And I don't want to pull him from the rotation because who are you going to replace him with? It's just one of those things where you hope he can just keep you in games, and unfortunately, he did not.
Yeah, and to your point about staying in the rotation, he's done enough this year that he has earned himself the right to stay in there for, at least a couple more shots. If he continues to perform like he did in the Cincinnati game, then yes, it's time to reevaluate. But I think the nice little streak he went on before this has earned him, the chance to redeem himself. Like you said, Chase Anderson and David Hale both did come into the game. Anderson goes 3, allows 3 hits and 2 earned runs. David Hale goes an inning and 2/3, 3 earned runs, 1 walk, 1 strikeout. Hector Neris did appear in this game after not appearing in either of the games in Tampa Bay. He gets 2 ground outs. One of them gets thrown away by Ronald Torreyes, but Neris does finish out the 8th. The only run scored for the Phillies in this one, JT Realmuto with an RBI ground out. For the Reds, Kyle Farmer collects 5 RBIs, and Max Schrock 3 RBIs. So just not a pretty performance all around for the Phillies in that one. And it would be a much different story in the Tuesday game against the Reds. The final score of this one is 17-3 with the Phillies on top. Well, you'd see Ronald Torreyes with his first home run since 2017. He'd also collect an RBI double later in the game. Odubel Herrera would collect 2 home runs in this one, 3 RBIs. Rhys Hoskins hits a 2-run home run as well as an RBI double to collect 3 RBIs himself. Andrew McCutchen with 2 home runs. McCutchen, I think, has done that a couple times this year where he hits 2 home runs in a game.
Those 2 home runs were like no doubters too.
Mm-hmm.
Like the one that Herrera hit to like right center, I was like, we're kind of waiting to see if it was going to go out. Mm-hmm. But with McCutchen, it was just like, bang, that's gone. Yeah. Bang, that's gone.
Yeah, when McCutchen, I don't know that any of his home runs this year have been cheap. He seems to really, when he gets one, he gets it, right on the barrel, and it's fun to see. You wish his numbers had picked back up. We saw him get dropped from the leadoff spot, and I don't know if that's more of Odubel playing so well or McCutchen kind of falling off that hot streak he was on. But
I think it's more Odubel. And this is the game that kind of is frustrating because they scored 17 runs. In the previous 6 games, they had scored a combined 13 runs. It's just like, well, this is the kind of the glimpse of the team that you thought you would have, and it was a game where you didn't have Didi at all, and it's just this is the game that you thought you would have, like not like every day, but you just thought, okay, this team can do this, maybe once every week and a half, and score more than 2 runs in the other games. But so this just it was a fun game to watch, but it also for me was just like a realization of like, man, why can't this team just click like most games?
And be consistent, and not like you said that in the previous 3 games heading into this one they had scored 3, 2, and 1. So
and no Didi, no Harper.
Yeah, Yeah.
It's just and then Bohm looked good. He had 3 hits, and his stance looked a little more open than
Yeah.
usual. So maybe he's trying something else. You know, during BP, we'll see if that holds up. Of course, they score 17 runs and then have a rain out and an off day.
Aaron Nola would go 5 innings, allowing 8 hits, 3 earned runs, 2 walks, and 2 strikeouts. That second strikeout would be his 1,000th in his career as a Philly. He was the fastest in Phillies history to reach 1,000 strikeouts. And you know, when they showed that graphic, it's I don't know about you, but it was pretty shocking to see he was the fastest of some of the guys that have been here. And
I was very surprised. And also another milestone. I think Reese hit his 100th double of his career.
Oh, okay, yeah. So Reese has been hitting well, and like you mentioned, Bohm, maybe putting something together there in that Cincinnati game, get his confidence up a little bit. And we've talked about Matt Joyce a couple of times. It's nice to see him with a couple home runs off the bench. Miller's been seeing some playing time, so you never know. You never know when a team's going to just kind of get going and peel off 9 out of 10 games or whatever it is. And you go 9-1 in this division. It's
I feel like we're doing CPR on like someone who's just trying to hold on, just like come on, you can survive.
Yeah. Well, it's just the nature of this division where everything is so tight, and probably will be for the rest of the year. We have talked about before about the Mets getting their a couple of their pitchers back, but they just had a setback with Syndergaard, and he looks like he's going to be out for a little while longer. So there's no guarantees. You just don't know. So, but it is worth mentioning the upcoming schedule that the Phillies have because, Bob, I hate to tell you, it does not look pretty. I have to call. Oh, God damn it! All right, let me try that again. It does not look pretty. So as you mentioned, let me try that again. As you mentioned, the Phillies are coming back home at Citizens Bank Park. They'll be playing 8 games here. The first set is against the Washington Nationals, the interdivision opponent. First time Washington is coming to Philadelphia this year. Not the greatest record there at 23-30, but any game against a division opponent is going to be difficult. And right now I really don't know what to expect. The Phillies did take 2 out of 3 in Washington a couple weeks ago and had a chance really to sweep, but what do you see? How do you see at least this first 3-game set going, especially with Wheeler kicking things off tomorrow night?
I am nervous. It is a divisional series. It is a winnable series. The Nationals are not playing very well. They are at the bottom of the division. But I wish we had more than just Wheeler pitching, because we have Wheeler on Friday. Then we have Spencer Howard, who we talked about, his issues. And then we have Vince, who, he was on a hot streak. But at least for me, I am sort of worried. He's a very confidence-based pitcher, in my opinion. He needs some good motivation, some good confidence. I'm hoping that start last time out does not hang with him for Sunday's game. If it doesn't and he is back to where he was before, then I feel a little bit better about this series. But just having Zach and no Eflin or Nola in this series has me a little bit worried.
Yeah, I could see that. We've talked before about how, I hate when the Phillies play against Atlanta, especially in Atlanta. You had mentioned not being a fan of when they go to Washington. Do you feel the same? Because I think it's just a natural thing to have those feelings against certain teams, and at least for me, I feel pretty okay with going up against Washington. I'm not too worried about them coming here, especially. I think not taking 2 out of 3 is unacceptable, honestly. And it sounds silly after we just got done talking about how close this division is, but I I think these are completely winnable games. With the caveat, yes, you have a couple of pitchers going that are not your top guys, but uh, I think that if you want to think that your team can make it to the playoffs, then this is a series that I think you should be pretty confident about. And I
Yeah.
don't know if I would use the word confident, but I just feel like they can pick 2 out of 3 off here.
Yeah, this is. I mean, I agree with everything you just said. This is a winnable series. This is a series that they should win. This is a series that honestly, they kind of need to. It's against the division opponents. It's at home. I don't feel as bad when Nationals are playing in Philly. It's more of a when we're in DC kind of feel. But it's just with the inconsistency of the offense and with the issues that we've seen from Spencer Howard, and with my personal, issues with Vince and seeing him sort of when things don't go right, they kind of just unravel in the past for him. If Spencer Howard and Vince Velasquez can hold the Nationals and just limit the runs and just give the offense a chance, especially later in games where we seem to do a lot better as an offense, then yeah, then I will feel better and I will say yeah they can win this series. But I just don't have that guarantee or that guaranteed feeling that Spencer and Vince will automatically do that.
Yep, that's all totally reasonable, and we'll see how things go. Home cooking seems to have helped this team out a bit this year, and they're going to need it with the way they play on the road, especially after or especially with after Washington leaves town. They welcome the Braves back to Philadelphia for their second series here. Another 3 game set, 2 night games and a day game. Which, if everything lines up, you get Wheeler in the last game of that series. So again, your top guy going there, Aaron Nola. Actually, all 3. Yeah, Nola, Eflin, and Wheeler.
This series I feel much better about because you have, or you should literally have, your top 3 guys going this series.
Yeah.
So this is the series I feel the best about. And I'm not so great about the following series.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, with the rotation falling the way it is, you're going to have the Yankees come to town for a weekend series. Only 2-game sets, but if the rotation falls the way it's been falling, which it's going to, unless some weird change happens, you're going to have Spencer Howard and Vince Velasquez facing the Yankees, which is not the 2 pitchers that I would prefer to have face the Yankees. But on the flip side, not to get too ahead of ourselves, on the flip side, once we go out west after the Yankees and face the Dodgers, we'll have the rotation line up again for all 3, Noah, Eflin, and Wheeler to face the Dodgers in LA. So it's sort of a give and take this homestand.
Yeah, and I am glad you brought up those other series because this is one of the things I wanted to touch on. These next 5 series are really going to be,
Andrew, we're going to San Francisco finally.
Well, yeah. So these next 5 series are going to be pretty telling as far as how this season really is going to shake out. You've got 2 3-game series against divisional opponents, and then 3 series against pretty darn good teams. The Yankees, they've been hot up and down this year. They're on a little bit of a skid, and then you go to play the Dodgers. That they're 3rd place in the NL West, but they would be 1st place in any other division in the National League. And then, yes, you go to play the San Francisco Giants, who have the best record in the National League, and also the Phillies' former manager that so many people thought couldn't do it here, but seems to be doing pretty well in San Francisco. But let's save that for another day. So 5 straight series that are all difficult in their own way. Divisional opponents who, yes, don't have the greatest records, but division games are so much of a toss-up that you just never know. And then against 3 teams that are all playoff contenders. So these games are going to be crucial to how this season plays out for the team. And it all gets started with this homestand. You have to win each of these series. So take 2 out of 3 from the Nationals, take 2 out of 3 from the Braves, and split with the Yankees, and I think especially you just laid it out. If that Yankees if that Yankee series plays out like we're expecting, where the two starters will be Howard and Velasquez, then taking one out of the two of those would be phenomenal. And then, of course, it depends on how the previous 6 games go, but we'll see. That's how much this season or how this season pretty much has been. We'll see. And then after that, heading into the end of the month, so with a couple of rainouts that the Phillies have had this year, I did not know this until I sat down to look at the schedule just before we started recording here. In the span of 17 days leading up to the All-Star game, the Phillies will be playing 18 games. They kick things off with a doubleheader on June 25th against the Mets. They finish out the next 2 games of that series. And then the rained-out game against the Cincinnati Reds will be played on Monday, June 28th. And then the Phillies do not have another off day after that until the All-Star break. And in that stretch, they're going to be playing the Padres, the Cubs, and the Red Sox. So,
yeah,
there is nothing easy coming up for this team as we head into the All-Star break. There is just they have a couple off days, but there are really no series that are cakewalks. I mean, it's against division opponents, it's against division leaders, with a game against the Reds thrown in there. So it's
not going to be easy. The next quote unquote easy series that I can see just offhand is the July 30th through August 1st series, where they play the lowly Pittsburgh Pirates. Other than that, it's division opponents. It's it's the NL West. It's the AL East. It's the Cubs, who are sort of Midland, but they still have some talent in there. So it is, that's why I said earlier, where is this team at? Is this team more on the quote unquote rebuilding side, or can this team be sort of ramped up for some kind of run? Me personally, I think to get any kind of run out of this team would be next year, and it would require Middleton opening up his wallet for Dave to use.
Yeah,
That's a
it's
story for probably another podcast.
Yeah, and especially we'll talk about it more as we get closer to the All-Star break and the trade deadline, because what is there really that this team has to offer in terms of trades. But yes, that's that could be a lot of talking, and yes, I agree. We'll save them for when we need to fill some more time. As I mentioned earlier, they did break out the All-Star voting links this week. I guess real quickly, we kind of touched on it earlier, but Bob, who are the all-stars from this team? Maybe all-star?
The only all-star that I see is Zachary Wheeler. I just think he's a no doubt all-star for this team. He's just been phenomenal. Probably, maybe the best career year he's had. Just offhand, I know he's sort of set some milestones as far as strikeout games compared to his previous years with the Mets. But I think as of right now, it's Wheeler. And I know it's probably just me and Andrew at this point. Hector Neris has an ERA under 2. There's probably a lot more bullpen guys throughout the league that are more deserving, but that's just another guy offhand that I can see as maybe getting consideration.
Yeah, because of the rule about every team getting an all-star, I think Zach Wheeler right now is the lock. And then Hector Neris is he deserves a look. I do agree with that, but yeah, there are probably other closers that are just getting more opportunities and will probably take the spot over him. And you could make a case that Odubel, if he were to keep things up, he could get some votes. He did miss the beginning portion of the year, so it would take probably something more special out of him. But it's pretty much Zach Wheeler or bust at this point. I guess to kind of wrap up the talk about the current Phillies team, a few notes. Adam Hazley has made his return to the team and will be starting in AAA either tonight or tomorrow night. So, with Quinn going out for the season, and we talked about Joyce, with his couple of home runs, but you know, Hazley could find himself back on the major league roster. I think, no doubt, especially if he plays well in AAA. He's really only an outfield guy, but you got McCutchen who scuffles from time to time, Harper who is hurt currently, but he could be back. He was eligible to come off the list yesterday. We haven't really heard word yet about if or when he'll come off. Certainly hope it's soon with all these difficult games coming up, but. So those are two names that we could be looking out for as far as returning to the major league roster sooner than later.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely possible. I mean, he has to beat out Janikowski and Joyce. So if either of those two falter and he does a decent enough job in AAA, I can definitely see him making the big league club again, especially with Quinn being done for the rest of the season. So yeah, I'm actually sort of expecting him to be back with the big club at some point this season.
Well, as we take a look back, or we can take a look back at 11 years ago and a couple of days on top of that, Roy Halladay did throw his perfect game against the Florida Marlins down in Florida. Man, what a special game! This was going on. Your memory is probably better than mine in terms of the Flyers. Was it the opening game of the Stanley Cup that year that this got? It was the same night as.
It was. It was. There was a playoff game for the Flyers. This is actually a funny story. Me and my friend was at his house and we were watching the Flyers, and we were always the mindset of playoffs before any sort of regular season game, especially a game against the Marlins. Who wants to watch a game in May against the Marlins? So we've watched that game. It's sort of muddled. I forget if we won or lost. I think we won that playoff game. I didn't get a chance to go back and actually look at what game that was. But we turned the channel to the Phillies, and it felt like a movie. It was literally Tom McCarthy going, "And can you believe what we just witnessed?" Like, what did we miss?
Yeah.
So yes, I actually never watched the game. I've since seen the game in highlights, and I've seen the game all the way through, but I did not see the game live. And then my poor friend, who I was with, and he missed the game later on that season when Doc threw the second no-hitter in postseason history against the Reds. He was out on a trip out west, and I called him about 4 times after the game. No answer. He then calls me back, and with this just defeated sound in his voice, goes, "What did I miss?" And I went, "Nothing, just the second no-hitter in postseason history."
Just about 7:45, October the 6th, 2010, the first postseason game for Roy Halladay. He winds the 0-2, swing and a dribbler out in front of the plate. Ruiz out to get it. The throw from his knees. It's in time, and it's a no-hitter. Unbelievable. Ruiz and Halladay embrace, and the Phillies again celebrate around Roy Halladay. 4-0. It's the second no-hitter in Major League postseason history here tonight at Citizens Bank Park.
And so the same year, luckily I saw one of them because I was actually working at the stadium at the time. I was there live, and I was, mere yards away from Ruiz when he threw that ball down to Howard for the last out. I got to see that game live. I missed the first perfect game, but my poor friend missed two iconic moments in Phillies history months apart.
So it's funny. I've got. I think anybody who's a fan of the team has stories about these games, and for me, it's sort of similar for the perfect game. I was at a family friend's house for the Flyers game, and I've never been a huge hockey guy, so I was kind of off on my own in a separate room watching the Phillies game, and I probably didn't watch the first 3 or 4 innings, but I tuned in for a decent portion of the ending, and yeah, it was pretty much me being like, guys, let's maybe flip this Phillies game on because he's going through each inning, and it's like, okay, and just man, what a just magical special game, and we haven't seen one for the Phillies since then, and I mean we really haven't seen a pitcher like Roy Halladay for the Phillies since then, and but yeah, what a special night that was. Of course, with a perfect game, he goes 9 innings, no hits, no walks, 11 strikeouts, and I thought this was pretty cool. After that game, his ERA was at 1.99. I mean, man, I keep using the word special, but what a special player he was. And he was up against Josh Johnson, who at the time for the Marlins was their ace. He was their guy, and it was a pitcher's duel, and the only run Johnson gave up was on a misplayed ball out in the center field, and that was the only score for the Phillies. It was a 1-0 finish. So. Yeah, just I can't believe it's been 11 years since this one, and
Yeah,
I
he's
still
been.
hear Tom McCarthy's call every time they replay it. The
Mhm.
Castro has it, spin fire is a perfect game. It's just yeah, just what a memory. And then for the no hitter, I was at my high school working or in whatever club it was making signs. I don't know. I was just at an after school activity or whatever, and
Mhm.
it got to be the 6th and 7th inning, and me and my friend who were both Phillies fans are sitting there listening or following on our phones, however we were doing. And I think after the 7th inning, after there was no hits, we both looked at each other. We're like, we got to get out of here. We both called our parents and got rides home and left early because you can't miss out on something like that. And I distinctly remember my dad going through a red light I shouldn't say going through a red light, but turning on a red light when he wasn't supposed to, just so we got home on time. And yeah, just really, I don't know, how to really put into words how
Yeah,
how
he
important
was
this
just
game
a
was.
special pitcher just to watch. I was lucky enough to, like I said, work at the stadium for many years.
Mm-hmm.
I do owe the entire fan base an apology. I believe just before the 4th inning, I did say the p word, uh, perfect. And then afterwards, he walked. I believe it was Jay Bruce,
Yes, it
and
was.
only Andrew and maybe people home will know this, but Jordan, who we work with,
Mm-hmm.
came back to the kitchen and just gave me a death stare, and I said, "I'm so sorry, Jordan. I did not mean to say perfect."
That's
But
fantastic.
when I went outside to watch the last inning, it was just a crazy feeling. There was standing there, we were standing and cheering. But when that ball hit the bat in front of Ruiz, you could have heard a pin drop for
Mm-hmm.
what felt like an eternity. And then to watch him pick up the ball and just fire a strike down to Howard, I can just see it in my head like I was there. That was just very, very fortunate enough to see that. And just even seeing Roy before games and how he would work out and prepare. I just vividly remember watching long toss, and he was the only pitcher because they would do long toss out in the outfield. He was the only pitcher I can remember when he did long toss with Ruiz in the outfield. I could hear Ruiz's glove just smack every time the ball hit his mitt, just doing long toss. That's the kind of effort Roy put into just training.
Yep. Yep. He never, uh, never looked weak. There's probably a better way to say that, but he always had on, his game face, on those game days, it was just such a stoic look to him. And man, I don't know how as a batter you look at him looking back at you and think you have any chance of hitting the ball, because that cutter of his, just everything about his demeanor was so great. And then you get the stories of how often Chase Utley was the first guy there at spring training or before a game and working out, and I guess it was the first first game or first day of spring training after the Phillies had acquired Halladay. Utley shows up to the ballpark and Halladay was already there, drenched in sweat. He had already gotten his first workout in, so he was no nonsense. He knew what he needed to do and how to get it done and how to get himself ready for the games. And man, what a tragedy to see. Just how he went out and how he battled demons just like anybody else did. And especially because it seemed like he was on a path to being possibly a major league coach at some point. I know he was coaching for some of his kids' teams and some of the younger players, and he was working with the Phillies as a I guess a specialist consultant or whatever terminology they use. And
that Roy Oswalt tweet is just sums up how Doc is. He's talking about a sort of like a pickup tournament game with former major leaguers, and Doc wanted to know how competitive it was so he could get in shape. So that's just the kind of player he was, and lucky enough that we were able to watch him. And it was very odd that a few weeks back it was his 44th, or would have been his 44th birthday when the Game 1 of the Blue Jays Phillies series happened back on May 14th. But special player, special moment in Phillies history. That whole year was just really special, getting to watch him and getting to see history made twice in the same season. Just very incredible.
Yep, absolutely. Well, that'll do it for us for this edition of the podcast. I guess before we head out, any sort of prediction for these next 6 games going up against the Nationals and the Braves here in Philly?
I'm going to say, I'm not even going to think about the Yankee series yet because we'll probably get to that after the next show.
Yeah.
I'm going to say, I'm going to be optimistic here and say 4-2. Just because the Braves series, you have all 3, of your best going out, and you're hoping that maybe Vince or Spencer can steal you at least one of those 2. So I'm going to be optimistic and say 4-2.
The Phillies are going to win 5 out of these 6 games against the Nationals and Braves. With getting Wheeler twice, you'll have Nola in there, you'll have Eflin in there. Coming off of a absolutely fantastic offensive performance in that last game against Cincinnati, the chance of Harper coming back this weekend. I think it all adds up to, and which we haven't even mentioned yet, the stadium going back to 100% capacity this weekend, starting with tomorrow's game. So I think the combination of all these things gets this team strapped to a rocket, and we see a pretty good stretch of games for this team. I think they start to turn things around. And if this is wrong, I will be going back and deleting this part of the podcast. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, there we go.
So thank you everyone who has tuned in and listened to this episode. We'll be back next week to cover these 6 games against the division opponents and reevaluate where the Phillies season is at that point. So thanks again everyone, and catch you next week. Enjoy the games.